All right, let's dive in. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something you probably do 100 times a day, but never really think about. We're going to solve the mystery of the web request.
You know the drill, right? You type a URL into your browser, you hit enter, and poof, a web page just appears. It feels like magic, doesn't it? Well, it's not. It's actually a super fast, incredibly precise journey with a clear start and a clear finish. So let's trace that journey together, step by step, and see how it all really works.
Okay, to really get this, we're going to use a simple analogy. Think of it like this. You're ordering food from a really fancy, high-tech restaurant. The URL router? That's your GPS. Its whole job is to figure out exactly where your order needs to go. And the view? Well, the view is the chef at that destination, the one who decides what to cook up just for you. So you've got the GPS finding the location and the chef preparing the meal. Simple, right? So, let's start with that GPS, the URL router. See, the very first problem a web server has to solve is looking at the address you typed in and figuring out, okay, which part of my code is supposed to handle this? That's exactly what the router is for.
Now, the techie term for this is URL configuration, or just routing. But really, you can just think of it as the GPS's map book. It's a list of every possible address you could type, and right next to each one, it points to the exact chef, that piece of code that's in charge of that specific request.
So, how does the router actually pull this off? Well, it's a pretty straightforward three-step process. First, it gets the request from your browser. Second, it scans through its list of patterns, looking for a match for the URL you typed. And third, and this is the really clever part, it doesn't just find a match. It also grabs any key information that's embedded right inside the URL itself. Take a look at this. Let's say you go to a URL for, I don't know, product number 42. The router is smart. It doesn't just see the products page, it actually sees and captures that number, 42. So why is that a big deal? Well, that's what makes a website dynamic. It's the key that lets the server show you that specific product, not just some generic one-size-fits-all page. And that brings us perfectly to the next step in our journey, the destination. We've arrived at the kitchen, and it's time to meet the chef, or as we call it, the view. The GPS has done its job, it's guided the request to the right place. Now it's all up to the chef to cook the meal.
You can really think of the view as the brain of the whole application. It's just a dedicated block of code, kind of like a single recipe. In programming, we'd call this a function or a class. Its job is to take in all the details of your request and then figure out what to send back. This is where all the real work, all the heavy lifting happens.
So what's on the chef's to-do list? First, it accepts the order, the request. Then, it follows the restaurant's rules, what we call business logic. You know, stuff like checking if you're a regular customer, if you're logged in, or if you even have permission to order this dish. After that, it might need to go to the pantry, the database, to grab some ingredients or store leftovers. And finally, it puts the dish together and prepares the final response to send back to your table or your browser.
But wait a minute. How does the chef know exactly what you ordered? How did that product ID, that 42 from earlier, get from the GPS all the way to the kitchen? Well, that's where the connection between the router and the view becomes so important.
Let's check out another example. A developer might write a URL pattern that looks something like this. It's set up to match any request for a user's profile. See that little placeholder for the username? That's basically a note to the router that says, hey, whatever piece of text shows up in this spot, grab it. It's super important. And here's where it all connects. The router takes that username it just captured from the URL, let's say it's Gemini, and it hands it directly over to the view. It's passed in as something called an argument, which is really just a fancy word for a piece of info the function needs to do its job. Just like that, the chef has the specific ingredient, the username Gemini, and it can now look up the correct user profile. This is how the web delivers those amazing personalized experiences we all expect.
Now, just like there are different styles of chefs or cooking, developers have a couple of different ways to write these views. You've got function-based views, which are kind of like a simple, straightforward recipe, great for easy tasks. Then you have class-based views, which are more like a master chef's technique book, a bit more complex, but you can reuse the techniques over and over again. It's really just about picking the right tool for the job.
Okay, so the chef has done all the work, the meal is cooked. Now for the final, crucial step, serving the dish. So what can the chef actually send back to the table? You might be surprised to hear that the response isn't always a full web page. Sometimes, it's the raw HTML code that your browser uses to build the page. Other times, especially for things like mobile apps, it's just raw data in a format like JSON. It can even be a simple redirect, basically saying, hey browser, go look over here instead. Or, if things go wrong, it might just be a simple error message.
All right, we've navigated with the GPS and we've watched the chef cook. It's time to put it all together. Let's do a quick recap of that entire round trip, from the moment you hit enter to the second that page loads.
It's really a 5-step dance that happens in a blink of an eye. 1. You send a request. 2. The router, our GPS, finds a match for the URL and grabs any important data. 3. The router calls the right view, our chef, and hands off that data. 4. The view works its magic, doing all the thinking and talking to the database. And 5. The view sends the final response back to you. That simple, elegant cycle, that's the engine powering almost every single website you use every day.
So the next time you open your browser and type in an address, you'll know what's happening. You'll know about that secret journey happening behind the screen. You now have the blueprint for how the modern web actually works. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build with it?